This guy is a healthcare practitioner. He was accused of sleeping with a patient and he threw a used condom in a dustbin. Then he was taken in for doing that thing to a patient. I don't want to mention it because of obvious reasons. His case has been dropped. Why? Because the key witness has died. The person who could provide reliable witness to the state, reliable testimony that this guy actually did it, has died. Okay? And when a witness dies, the case is usually dropped. You see, like the case of William Ruto, and this one I'll be very careful, when he was taken to the ICC and then he was accused of crimes against humanity. The witnesses just died mysteriously and then the case became weak. I don't know if that case can even continue. And several other cases, the witnesses just died mysteriously and then the charges were dropped. Now, I want to start studying what happens when a witness dies. When a case is going on, especially a high-profile case like crimes against humanity, like that case of a doctor sleeping with a patient, when a person is accused and the witness dies, the case is usually dropped. Now I'm asking myself, are witnesses safe? Are witnesses safe? Even when we talk about witness protection, are witnesses actually really safe? And is it okay to be a witness? Is it safe to be a witness? Let's first of all analyze the case of Daktari. Daktari was the only Daktari in a unit where we had a dialysis patient, right? And then when he went to hospital, I don't know if the patient was unconscious. I don't want to make claims that I don't understand. But there was a dustbin there. And then I used protection. Let me use another word. I used protection was found in that dustbin. And then somebody came, the eyewitness now, who said that he suspected that doctor could have done something with that patient. Now, the case started going on. This person was released. This guy, this doctor, was released on a bond, I think, of 500,000 shillings. And then he's out, and you are also a witness, you are out. Now, do you know that that kind of case can lock that person in for many years? This guy can go in for many years. So, this guy can do anything. I'm not saying that he did anything. This guy can do anything. So when the case was going on, this guy brought a lot of witnesses with himself. I'm talking about now Daktari. Daktari brought a lot of witnesses, including his wife. Now, what were his excuses? He said that he had consensual intimacy with his wife at home. Now, when they had consensual intimacy, he carried that protection to work. Now, I want you to listen to this very carefully. The guy did consensual intimacy with the wife, and then he carried this condom used. You know, it is used. When it is used, it has those things inside. And then he put on clothes, clean clothes. Then it is his wife, his own wife in the house, but he carried this thing to work so that he can throw it in a dustbin in a room where the patient was. You know, I wish I I followed the proceedings of that case, because that case seems to have been somehow interesting, okay? So the court tried to listen, then this thing was not making sense, because if you have consensual intimacy with your wife, how then do you put on clean clothes, you freshen up, and then you carry a used rubber in your pocket, then you go with it to work? Then you throw it in a dustbin. Now, we had a person who had, we can say, sufficient information that this guy had slept with that patient. And the patient, I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe the patient was unconscious, because in most cases, when these health practitioners sleep with patients, they usually make the patients unconscious first. Like the case of Mugo Wairimu. You see, when he was sleeping with a patient, he used to sedate the patients first. We call it sedation. They give patients some drugs, like there's a drug called diazepam. When you give a patient that kind of drug, the patient becomes unconscious, he is sedated. Basically, he is unresponsive. So when they are unresponsive, you simply lubricate and then you do your thing. You see? So that is what they were suspecting that this guy did. But the guy said, no, this one, I did it with my wife at home, and then I carried this thing, then I threw it in the dustbin at work. Now, we had a person who had another version of events, and the person who was the key witness in this case. Now that person, as the case was going on, the person mysteriously disappeared from this life. How can we explain that? How can we explain that? And you know, when I was looking at this case, this is not the only case. Now let's avoid this case. I don't want to provide a lot of details about something that I don't understand or about something that I don't have facts on. Because you know, courts work with facts and evidence, and if evidence is not available, he remains to be a suspect. He is not confirmed to have done that, and so he is lucky to be free now. I don't think he can be locked up because there is no evidence against him. Now, from this case, we learn that if somebody is accusing you of anything and there is a key witness, in most cases, in criminal cases, the state is usually the complainant. And you know, the state does not usually have enough evidence. It relies on witnesses. And then witnesses have to go to court and provide evidence. And if you are the only key witness, if you are the only eyewitness to that case, you have to be protected because anybody can do anything to you. That is why we have something we call witness protection in this country. I don't know how it works because a witness is a normal person. You are supposed to be a free person. You are supposed to be interacting with people, buying food, going to the market. So I don't know what really witness protection does. Does it give police officers to these witnesses? You may help me understand. Does it give guns to the witnesses? I don't understand. In this case, I don't know how this witness was protected, but mysteriously, the guy just disappeared. Now, let's leave this case alone and then focus on another case. And I want to talk about the case of our president, William Ruto. And this one I'll be very careful to avoid, and I don't want to be misquoted, right? William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta were accused of crimes against humanity in the International Criminal Court. When the case was still going on, there are people who offered themselves to be witnesses. Although during that time when Ocampo was here, they said that the witnesses were coached. There is a place where the witnesses were being coached and then they were taken to court to testify against William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, we don't know what happened. You know, we don't have really facts of what happened because when these people became president and deputy president, they had now immunity against criminal proceedings. So you cannot just take a president and a deputy president to court. So when he is now a president, when Uhuru became president and when William Ruto became deputy president, now they had to be here now. They could not continue with such a case until they completed their term. Now, do you know what happened? What happened is witnesses started disappearing one by one. They just started disappearing. What happened to this Daktari is not a very strange thing. This is something that has been happening. For example, I'll mention just one witness that was there, and he was called Meshach Yebei. Meshach Yebei was a Kalenjin, right? And he wanted to testify against William Ruto. And what happened? He was just in his home, and then he was abducted. And then his body was found mutilated. Now, this is not strange. Why? Because you are testifying against a high-profile case against an individual who has a lot of money. You know, we cannot even say it is William Ruto who did it. Because, you know, William Ruto is a politician. And politicians usually have supporters and sycophants. So, you cannot fight against a person who is a billionaire with a lot of support from people, and you are going to testify against him. You will disappear. Meshach Yebei thought that now there was witness protection, and by the way, the ICC was talking about interfering with witnesses. Some of the witnesses were being interfered with. Now, Meshach Yebei, I don't know if he refused to be interfered with, because interfering with witnesses usually sometimes involves even giving them money and then telling them that don't go to court to testify. And when they refuse to testify, probably the case can be dropped. Now, in this case, Meshach Yebei was just abducted. And then he disappeared. And then things just went like that. And as we speak right now, he's 6 feet under in the grave. Now, look at the case of Daktari. The witness is 6 feet under. Now, look at the case of William Ruto. Meshach Yebei is 6 feet under. And do you think that is the only case? There is a case of Paul Gisheru. There is a witness called Paul Gisheru who was a lawyer, okay? And I know this person understood what we call witness protection. Now, this guy was testifying against, I don't know if he was testifying against William Ruto or Uhuru Kenyatta, but what I know is that he was a witness in the case involving criminal charges against president and deputy president. Now, the guy came. He was a rich man. He was in Karen, and I know the guy had a lot of protection. He went to the ICC to become a witness, and then he came back. He went to his home. Do you know what happened? The guy mysteriously died. Just like that. And the guy died. As we speak right now, he's 6 feet under. Do you want me to provide more cases? Do you want me to give you more cases? I may not mention specific cases, but there were journalists also. You know, during the post-election violence, we had journalists who were covering the events. And then they had video evidence of what transpired during that time. Like, for example, politicians going to the rallies and then speaking things that inflammatory statements that led to violence. So these journalists and other regional actors from Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, these guys had a lot of rich information that ICC would rely upon to prosecute William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta. Do you know what happened to them? Some of them just disappeared and others violently died. Their bodies were found decomposing in some thickets somewhere. Now, I don't want to continue a lot about this criminal case of our President William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta, but are you learning that becoming a witness in this country or becoming a witness anywhere in a case, in a high-profile case, is very dangerous? Now, you can connect that case to the case of this Daktari. You see? Now, just connect them. I'm not saying that these guys were killed by anybody. What I'm just saying is that when you are a witness, it is common to disappear mysteriously. Now, do you want to become a witness? Are you a witness in any case? Maybe let me know. Are you a witness in any high-profile case? How have you managed to navigate this? How have you managed to protect yourself? How have you managed to avoid dying mysteriously, if I can say so? Because what I'm learning from all these high-profile cases is that witnesses don't live longer. These guys just die. You know, and some people will think that this thing started recently. This is not something that has started recently. Witnesses started dying long way before. It is not a new thing. And that is why in this video you have to encourage one another and tell each other that it is sometimes not the right thing to do to become a witness. Like, for example, the case of Dr. Robert Ouko. I know Gen Zs don't know about that, or maybe if they read about that, you know, these Gen Zs don't care about history. Gen Zs usually say, teach us about practical things, don't teach us about history. So Dr. Robert Ouko was assassinated. This is a person that was assassinated, I know, by the government. From now what we hear, the government ended the life of that man, okay? And then there's a commission that started inquiring about this thing, and they wanted evidence. So there were people who wanted to provide evidence about Dr. Ouko's death. And some of the people were involved even in planning his death. One of them was Hezekiah Oyugi. Hezekiah Oyugi, this guy, they used to call him Big Pen or what. This is a very rich, influential Luo. So when this guy wanted to provide evidence, he was detained and then he was released. And he said he had watertight evidence. He had watertight evidence. And that evidence, it was obvious that our president, who was Moi, who is dead now, killed Dr. Robert Ouko. That one I can say it now confidently because the president is not here. He died. Ouko himself died. A lot of other people who participated in that died. And after their death, that is when we came to learn that the president also participated in that whole process. So this guy called Hezekiah Oyugi had watertight evidence. And he said that he wanted to testify in court for people to know who killed Dr. Robert Ouko. Now, Hezekiah Oyugi was the president. What he did, first of all, that commission that was inquiring that, the president first of all dissolved that commission because he knew that Hezekiah Oyugi had watertight evidence against him. So he dissolved the commission. After dissolving the commission, they took this guy called Hezekiah Oyugi, and when he was in detention, I think they injected him with a substance. That is what they later found out. They injected him with a substance, and then he developed some neurological condition which led to a lot of complications to his health status. So he started seeking medication, he sought medication, but eventually the guy could not make it and he died. So people have not started dying now as witnesses. People have been dying as witnesses for a very long time. And from that history, I don't want to talk a lot about other specific cases because I don't know if I'll be putting myself in problems, but we have other high profile cases where people died mysteriously. Now, following all these cases, I sometimes believe it's not necessary to go to court. And that is why I was saying recently that it is better if you have a problem with someone, you solve it out instead of going to court, because there are a lot of risks involved in going to court. The first risk that I talked about is about corruption that usually happens in court. Justice is usually bought. When you bribe a judge, you can actually interfere with justice. The justice can be twisted in your favor. So you see, so that is the first risk. So even if you have a very good case with compelling evidence and you go to court, and then your opponent, I can call them the opponent or what, or the respondent or what, there are terms they use in court. If they decide to buy the judge, you can actually go without justice. So that is the first thing. That's the first reason I said that if I have a problem with anyone, just come, let us talk about that issue. Let's iron out that issue. And the second risk is now about the witness. Now, some cases don't require witnesses, eyewitnesses. I'm talking about key witnesses. These critical witnesses, the people who can be called primary witnesses of a case. If you are a primary witness in any case involving big people, I would just advise that just stop that, or stop even identifying yourself as a witness, because you are putting your life in danger. We are seeing a series of people dying throughout the whole process. And this is not like conspiracy theories. This is not conspiracy theories. These guys are just dying mysterious deaths, and it is happening in succession. So if you are a witness, I will say, if you have evidence, also look at the case. What kind of a case is it? Is this a case that is likely to lock someone in for life? People don't want to be jailed for life. And if you have a case that can lock someone in prison for life, and that person is free, you can disappear. You can disappear. You can imagine the case of that daktari. He was accused of sleeping with that patient. That daktari could have been locked inside for many years, even for life. And he was released on bond. So the person you are testifying against is free, and you are also roaming around free. Don't you see that is a problem? You are a witness in a case of somebody who can afford 500,000 bond. He is out, and you are also out. Don't become a witness. Don't become a witness. Or maybe if you are a witness, they talk about witness protection. You can seek to be protected, but for my case, I will not really want to be a witness. But again, I don't know how the justice system works. You may help me understand how the justice system works. But in my case, I would not really advocate for becoming a witness in any case. So thank you for listening to me. This is Gidi Akali, and we shall meet again in another video. Peace.